YouTubers, welcome back to Desert Have a Garden. I am in my low desert garden on this super warm, windy May day. I'm hoping that you're not getting too much of that wind noise. I do have a new little cat fur thing, whatever it's called, for the microphone to help reduce that noise. But I just wanted to give you a walkthrough of what's going on in the garden right now. I know in some parts of the country you're just getting started with your gardening. Here we may be wrapping things up pretty quickly. So I'm over here with my ancient tomato plant, and I call it ancient because this was started last spring and it is still going, and it's monstrous, and I keep trimming it and clipping it, and you may notice that there's a lot of yellowing going on with it, and I think that it's just kind of reached the end of its life cycle, and we will probably end up having to take it out pretty soon, but it is still producing tomatoes. So let's go ahead and get started with the tour. Just this morning I came out and harvested all of the kind of orangish looking tomatoes off of this plant because I don't like to give the birds an opportunity to peck at them and kind of ruin them. And already in today's heat, I see this one has started to turn orange, and so I'll be harvesting that. But you'll notice that there's lots of dead leaves and lots of yellow leaves all throughout. But this plant is just a tangled mess, and I keep trimming it. There's like little piles on the ground still from trimming it today. And then you can see the tomatoes that I harvested today. It's putting on some nice good sized tomatoes. This is the solar flare tomato. And of course I got a couple dragon tongue beans and some of the golden wax beans this morning as well. But this plant and the grapevine are kind of intermingled right now, and so I haven't done anything to get this grapevine like I don't know, roped up really well, and I can't even really find all of the flowers that it's put on to put on grapes yet, just because this tomato plant is so overwhelming. But we did have a little problem with powdery mildew already in the garden this year, so you may think it's everywhere on this grapevine, but I actually put the sulfur on it to put an end to the powdery mildew, so I think that's getting under control with the grapevine. Oh, look right there. There are some little grape flowers. Okay, so you get to see some of those at least. But yeah, this tomato plant is putting on all kinds of tomatoes, so I don't feel right in ripping it out just yet. I'll let it keep going for a bit longer, even though it's kind of an eyesore. And oh, there's another tomato going orange on me over there. So yeah, it's putting on lots of good tomatoes, which is exciting for me. And then over here in this garden bed is where I have the leeks and the dragon tongue beans. I also have chard. The chard I cut way back this weekend because there was a farmer's market, and I sold all kinds of the chard. We've got some squashes over there. I cut back the artichoke plants dramatically because they, I think they had that symbiotic relationship with the ants and aphids going on, where they were making this really sticky sap all over, and the sap was drawing in flies, just regular old black flies, and it was really gross, and the plant looked horrible. The artichoke plants, they weren't putting on any more artichokes, so I just cut them way back. And then I do have another squash plant over here that hopefully will start to take off now. And then we've got rosemary. Over here is something a little bit cool, something different I have done this year. This is called shiso or perilla, and it is, I think, considered like a Japanese basil, and it's what is used in pho. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. It's like that noodly soup concoction, and you can see it's gone to seed all over here. But I had originally started growing this because my girlfriend owns a local Chinese restaurant, and her husband was looking for this kind of leaf to put in the pho, and he could only get it frozen here. It would be shipped in frozen, and he's like, it's not really the same. It's much better if you can have it fresh. So I started, it's a heck of a plant to grow. It's really hard. I had a really hard time getting it germinated and then finally established, and then it got hot, so now it's going to seed and I think it's going to die. So I'll give them those leaves that I have and see how we go from there. And then here we have the Chinese long red noodle bean plant. So it puts on really, really long green beans that are red. So that's kind of like an oxymoron, but it hasn't had any flowers yet. I'm waiting to see those. And my spinach was going to seed, so I was letting it do its thing, but it's kind of wilted. The sun went past this area just now, and so it's kind of wilty. And then of course the monstrous eggplant that was also from last year's garden. And I picked a ton of eggplant off of here for the farmer's market and sold out of all of the produce, of course. But this thing is crazy and keeps putting on eggplant everywhere. And I harvest them when they're like 4 inches, so they don't get that big. And they're really tasty, kind of like a mushroom flavor. And then when it gets hotter, they start putting on more of these anomalies, like the yellow ones that are kind of weird. But this is the plant where I had all kinds of aphids, and then the ladybugs came in and rescued this plant. So I can't hardly find aphids anymore, and most of the ladybugs have moved on as well. And then let's keep walking over here. I'll actually do a detour to the barrel. And over here, I was having more of the powdery mildew, so you can see that I have the sulfur on the leaves to combat that. And so there are 2 of the summer crookneck squash plants in here, and you can see that they are putting on squash. The other one's over here. And then 2 are zucchini. And right here, they haven't put on any zucchini yet until now, so that's going to have a female flower open tomorrow. That'll make sure I get pollinated. And the second zucchini plant over here as well has some females that are getting ready to flower. So that's exciting. And then I think this is a white tomato. I am so horrible at labeling the garden and keeping track of it. So this tomato plant hasn't put on any blossoms yet. Hopefully it will soon, but I came in and pruned it all up, got off all the extra leaves. And then I have a sweet meat squash plant growing here. And you can see there's a female, those darn flies. There's a female squash right there. So this will be the first set of female flowers to open in the next couple days. And then the wax bean plants I just harvested today. They don't look super great, but they're getting new growth that looks really good here. So I'm happy for those. And these are all lemon cucumbers. They've been putting on flowers. Hopefully some cucumbers will show up really soon. And another squash, which heck if I know what it is because I didn't label it. And here's a volunteer tomato, which is kind of wild looking. I think it's an atomic grape tomato left over from last year. And the tomatillos are wilty from the sun today. I'll come over here and prop them up with a tomato cage, and it actually looks like there's a first tomatillo right there. Check that out, super cool. And then this is a pear tomato plant, and just this morning all of the tomatoes were green, and then this afternoon after the heat of the day we've got a couple that are ready to pick there. So they're just a small like grape variety, but they're supposed to be super sweet and they get that pretty yellow color. And in the same spot I have a sunflower that is growing up big here. Hopefully the sunflower gets much bigger before anything opens up there. And you may remember in my other video about the desert iguana, and she's still here. That's her hole. It's quite a big burrow, and I don't have the heart to kick her out, so she gets to have that area of the garden. And she has actually nibbled down the sprouts that I had growing in these areas, so proving that I probably should have kicked her out. But that is diva cucumber, holy basil, more diva cucumbers with nice flowers on them. And what else? More squashes. This is some sort of a summer squash, and it's getting ready to have a female squash right back there. So hopefully we'll know what it is soon. And I think that's a lipstick pepper, and that's a red bell pepper. Doesn't look so hot. I don't know what's going on with that guy. Here is a watermelon, and honestly I don't know which variety because I planted a couple of them and they didn't come up, and so I threw out some more seeds and this one came up, and I don't know which one it is. And back to the eggplants. So here we are in our small desert garden with all this kind of uncertainty going on right now in our world around us. It's, I think, become really important to focus on gardening and raising the food that you can in the area that you're at. And you know, it really makes me wish that I lived in an area where you can produce more food, but it is a challenge here, but we are doing the best we can in this area. I was talking to my husband about what the chances were of converting the entire front yard into a garden. That might be a little bit silly, but I don't know, we'll see. I think there's the potential for disruption in our food supply in the near future, and I'll probably do another video on my thoughts on that just so you don't have to listen to me rant here. But I hope you guys are all getting your gardens going and finding joy in doing that. And if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more updates in the future.